Welcome to the Place OS podcast. This week we have Shane from our team in Brisbane. Hey, Shane.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good. So the easiest way to get started, I find, is to ask the same question every week, and that is, what trends in the industry are you seeing at the moment?
Yeah, so industry at the moment, a lot of focus on getting people safely back to work, a lot of things around desk booking and just the future of work in general between, I suppose, flexing between office and virtual and being at home. Is the majority of what I'm hearing from the market at the moment still trying to reel with how that works and what's the best for their companies in getting people back to the office or having a good mix of staying at home and that flexible working policy.
How are you finding that with our global focus? You seeing that because Australia, COVID is not as much as an issue than other parts of the world, although it peaks every now and again. Is Australia really driving the work from home requests in the market? What are you seeing overseas? I know you work very closely with one of our largest customers in New York City. How are you seeing the markets differ in that regard, return to work?
Yeah, so I think definitely the Australian market's trying to lead that space. Well, not leading the space, but definitely we're looking earlier at return to work solutions, how they work between the home and the office. A lot of the world was probably locked down a little bit more, obviously, than Australia. We've done it quite well here. So a lot of the companies internationally are more looking at what happens next when we actually go back to the office in some time. So probably 6 months, 12 months down the track. So they're having discussions around space utilization and management and flexible solutions that they can use to not just fill a gap, which would be maybe used in the Australian market now around desk booking, and then what's that going to be in future? How do we change from what it is today with a pandemic that's really locking us out of the office or working from home, and how do we use a solution that's a bit more flexible rather than just trying to plug a hole in the market that's based on the pandemic issue we've got now.
Yeah, and I guess the benefit of a platform, not just PlaceOS, but just platform in general, is we can collect data to make more informed decisions. And I think right now we're in this interesting spot where a lot of our customers, a lot of the industry is guessing what people want with return to work. And our advantage doing a little bit of return to work in Australia is that we're a little bit further down the line with some of our customers. We've delivered some technology solutions. They've used it for 6 months. We now sort of understand what they need versus what they originally asked for. And we can adjust for that. And that's, if you go with an app only for like desk booking, for example, you're sort of stuck with the way it is. So what you purchase on day one is what it's going to be forever.
Yeah.
I think COVID and return to work has really shown the benefit and why you should go platform over off-the-shelf products.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And even with a platform, you can have a solution that fits that mix. It's the piece around the flexibility of it changing with the business that makes sense over time over an app that does one thing. Obviously, a lot of people in the market trying to provide a solution that fits the bill to make more money and to provide clients with a service that does one particular thing. But in time, I think you'll see those dwindle out when those solutions are no longer valid. And clients will be asking, okay, well, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the solution that we need for our clients, for our internal stakeholders? What are the property decisions that we want to make? And how do we bring those data sets together to make that solution valid for today, not for the pandemic period, which was now.
And yeah, and what I'm saying on that is some of our clients, the things they ask that we've now learnt are not a priority for them, are actually hard to achieve, and things that are a priority for them but they didn't realize are easy to achieve. So it's even like priority versus complexity or even cost is you sometimes don't know until you start. And again, that's why the platform's important, because a simple example would be a lot of our customers thought they wanted contact tracing with the ability to have, if someone reports as unwell, we see everyone they've come in contact with in the workplace, and then send a series of events based on that. But when you think about it, and when it's in action, if one person in your workplace is sick, you're probably going to shut down the whole building. If someone has COVID, people don't come back to work. In Australia in particular, if one person has COVID, they shut down a whole city. So of course, it's sort of redundant to track individual interactions in a workplace. And to do that, we can do that, and we have done that. but it's expensive to do so. Expensive in time or complexity, or
Yeah,
you need more integrations to have that granular data of
that's correct.
location.
Yeah,
But then simple things that they didn't realize they need, we can just say, well, that's just a simple integration for us. We get some information about what privileges people have for the building versus what training they've done, and should they be allowed in the workplace if they don't have particular induction training, for
that's
example. I mean,
right. Yeah,
that's an easy thing to achieve compared to contact tracing.
yep, and it's a big theme that's coming through on how do we use the platform to help automate these touch points. So
Yeah.
access, approval, getting people to the right space, so the space is used to the capacity it should be. These kind of automation triggers that help with maintaining the right number of people in a particular workplace and who should be where and that sort of thing is logical and it makes sense, and then the platform can help with doing that. So those are the kind of things that are coming out more and more. It's around, how do we get people safely in and out of the building? How do we get them a desk? How is that not something that acquires such a big touch point from the user to actually get to that point? Where a lot of other applications you can see out there are mainly based on space utilization or booking of a desk for this particular use case. So yeah.
One of the topics I wanted to chat with you about related to this is how do you run a smart building project with that in mind, with the fact that going into it, we don't know, the client doesn't know, the consultants don't know exactly what's needed. So, a platform is the short answer to that, but what about everything else around that? And you've played a valuable role in our business in introducing, things like engagement models and project management styles and internal processes. I still feel like a lot of the building industry are lost when it comes to that. How do you take a platform, customize it, adapt it long term when these are quite often capital projects that just
Yeah.
want to purchase something?
Yeah. So I've got pretty good opinions on this, and it really starts mostly around, I suppose, mindset of what you're looking for, what the problem is you're trying to solve, and what it is you're going after in the market. So when you're looking at a platform or something that you're going to be implementing, I'd be looking at, well, what is this for? What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the thing we're implementing and why? And I think that starts with just user experience in general. So obviously we have a pretty UX-led approach as to what we do with implementing solutions with our partners, previously with their own team. And that's really looking for what is the solution going to do for me today, and why would I use that, and what's going to be beneficial for the future as my business changes. And mostly my thinking around is how can a solution have ROI as the business changes continually, because it's bound to do so. And then when we're looking at the implementation process, it's really around looking, as we always say, around what is already within the building. What is the company using to facilitate such a solution, and how can we use that to help with not adding more complexity or product to a particular solution. A lot of the building community, as you know, are still sort of stuck on this waterfall based model of delivering solutions, because they've got provide a solution that's based on time, and it's usually staged to get to a dust free end date where it's open for the public to use. Software is a very different model, as you know. We've got to integrate with services that are both running on this waterfall based model, but it's much more focused on agile DevOps, like our team is at the moment. And running a software project in that sort of environment is tricky, and obviously it leads to excess effort and so forth from people that are engaged. So that's a little bit on the sort of process, but we obviously have a much more UX-led agile development process internally to deal with our software development and integration.
I think one of the reasons that's really important, there's two things you said there that, in my mind, adds to complexity in the building industry, and that's using what you already have, because the industry is sort of set up to purchase things. It's like, let's use the desk example. A lot of people, they will say, hey, we need a desk tracking solution, rather than look at, well, what data do we have available to us that lets us know where people are. So it's very product focused rather than solution focused. And it's a challenge to have the right person or the right team or the right company go in and do an audit of what's already there and what data that can possibly give a platform to achieve the same thing as if you went for this one siloed product.
Yeah.
The other part of that is user experience, and those two are very closely related because the user experience is based on what's possible, and what's possible is based on what you have, giving you data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's certain parts of the IT and software world that's very good at all of this because they don't have to integrate with physical things. They have the luxury of just like scoping UX in ways that are very well defined and a process that's been used for quite some time. And we're now trying to take that maturity and apply it to technology projects in the building world, with every engagement process working against us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I sort of it's a surprise that we've sold anything to anybody when you look at it sometimes, because platform with customization and running user experience, as well as auditing the data that you have in the building, bringing that back to the user experience for a bit of a feedback loop. That's ideal, but how do we get there? I mean, we've had some success. Can you talk on maybe our partnership model and how we have achieved that?
Yeah. So obviously, as people may know or should know, that we drifted from being a company that provided the platform and delivery of those solution side of things to the market, to being a partner sort of led go to market strategy with our partners providing those services. So really, it runs a couple of different ways. So ecosystem for us is around our solutions partners. So companies that are in, let's say, the solutions integrator MSA field, that provide hardware and integration services like hardware for buildings to date. So a lot of these companies are already working with our clients on integrating networks or wireless access points or UC communications tools and solutions. Other companies that are out there that are really focused on just development. So they're running software development houses, everything from UX to front, back end, QA. That's their bread and butter. That's what they do for a living. So what we do is we mix it up and work with a lot of these companies to fill the gap. So if a reseller's got a really good or integrator's got a really good integration part of the business, but they don't have capability with a great development firm, we team them up together and get the best result there. And we also work with technical alliances or partnerships on the product side to work with product companies like Cisco, for example, to understand how our solutions benefit each other, work well together, and then mark that through that ecosystem to make sure that the clients are getting network advantage, if you want to call it that, by using the best of breed products that come together to form one that's better than just one on their own.
So yeah, like the vendors such as Cisco can help us understand what we can get out of their products, what functions are available in their API, write new functions for us in some regards. The system integrator looks at that plus all of the other things from multiple vendors, make sure that's on the network, gets data out of that, and then can pass over to UX experience experts.
That's right.
Who can work out, well, if we have all of this available to us, what can we do in terms of the user experience, the user interface, the automation. And then typically we're running our partners, such as Monster Labs, they're running this as Agile sprints, right? So
definitely.
But that's the integration can still run their own project in their own way.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So most of them are still following. They're still following an Agile sprint methodology, even on the back end integration piece, where it's running that way. It might be running to a timeline, but it's definitely running on sprints with achievements within each of those periods. If you take the Monster Lab example, for example, they're working on client projects with us at the moment that they're running Agile 2-week sprints from discovery, from sprint 0 all the way to the completion of an application or integration and solution that they're building out for us, which is great for the client. They can work on a particular piece that meets the velocity of the team that's working on that product. They're not going to overly commit themselves or provide a team that's going to be 30 odd people to provide a solution very quickly. It's a great way for the client to add features, to look at their priority list of features and bring those in as they're getting user research back from their staff and clientele. One of our largest clients at the moment is doing that, and they've done that for the last 2 years on their product, and it's working really well because they're taking it back to the business, asking what they want, bringing that information back to user experience, flow design, and then once that's all agreed and happy with, everyone gets to development, and those roll out on a development cycle that's known by the firm. Everyone knows what's happening, what's coming up in the future, and it just creates a really good solution for the clients to add requests to, and to have little pieces trickling into the solution all the time, not creating too much change fatigue, I suppose you'd call it. But a really good solution that's well thought out, and all of the businesses inputting into that, which is great.
And is adapting to priorities in real time. I think that's important. Definitely. Because if let's say you have a 6-month project, but during, by month 2 or 3, those priorities are completely redundant, but you still go through the motion of completing a project you've set it up to fail. But
that's correct.
With the release cycles, you can constantly reassess the priorities.
Yeah. So going back to that, the waterfall model suggests that if you had a particular scoped project that in most cases, if one thing changed, you would potentially fail. You wouldn't meet the milestone. You wouldn't be paid for a piece of work. You would need to renegotiate. So it's very stuck in its way, whereas the process that we follow would allow for these kind of changes to fluctuate throughout a project.
Yeah, that's been we've learned that the hard way as well. We've had projects where there was 6 deliverables. We completed 3 of those, but an additional 15. And we're still held up to the contract because there's uncompleted deliverables, but we've done so much more than we actually were engaged for. And that's just, not workable. We realize we can't operate this way. And we were, in good faith adapting to their requirements, but, there's still a contract at the end of the day. The one last point you made there before we move on to another topic is that clients are using, and they're not scared of Agile. So I'm sort of feeling that, particularly for enterprise and our market vertical of smart workplace and enterprise customers, they're quite comfortable with this process and usually have teams that have already set up this way. Whereas the industry, the traditional players in the industry, perhaps the IT system integrators and the building consultants, they may be fearful of Agile because they don't really understand what it is. Do you agree with that? What do you think is maybe a misconception on how these projects run?
Well, I do think historically it's been the case. I do think they're also understanding that that's changing in the market. You're seeing these businesses start to evolve, to either bring in their own capability or understand that, look, we don't have one and we need help with that capability to provide this type of delivery on an agile basis. So some of the companies definitely know that they've got it. Some of them know that they don't, and they're really changing to either focus on what they're good at, reselling, implementing solutions via settings and so forth, and leaving the agile components to other companies to do that, or they're rounding out that sort of process internally. Most of these companies have internal processes for IT that's running in some form of agile anyway. So I think it's starting to pick up and become something that's normal.
Yeah, so some of those larger firms have been running agile projects in other areas of the business, not necessarily smart building or smart workplace. So that internally they can leverage that in-house ability, and that's great to see. Some of our partners are really embracing that.
That's right.
So we've been talking about project management quite a lot because you're obviously not a project manager for us. You're our chief operating officer, but I feel like our partners, many of those that you've brought into PlaceOS and managed that relationship, it's a learning curve for them. And as the industry sort of embraces this, we, like many things, accidentally have a lot of experience in this area, and even in the area of transitioning from one process to another, and picking and choosing across both. It doesn't have to be like a dogma. It's you can choose what's best for what's in front of you. I want to close off by talking about more recent activities in your role as COO, and that's growing our team and growing our culture. What are some of the philosophies there, some of the tools that you're using? I take it this is what you actually get excited about.
Yeah, it is. I think I'll probably just take it back a little bit to I suppose, some strategy discussions we were having around scaling our business. We've
Yeah.
always talked about moving from a project and delivery company that has a product to being a product company, and part of that was sitting down and saying, okay, well, what are the elements that we need to do that, and what are the fundamental things we need to get right before we try and blow this thing up and scale, right? So it was mostly around, okay, we need to have our A team engaged, the right processes in place, everyone's working to the same beat of the drum. We've got a good culture and we understand how we give back to the team, make sure the team know what's going on within the business, and we're really good at engaging with them at that level. So we started to implement some process in and around our engagement with the team, around using a tool called Culture Amp to drive engagement surveys, to create action plans on what we're doing good as a company, what we're not doing so well in, and making sure that people have a voice back to that. So we're providing a level playing field and really a great place for people to work.
Yeah.
We've always had a very open and very flexible working environment. And this just adds another layer to that to make sure that we're really focusing on our people as number one. Part of part of the rest of it is a really keen focus on client. So making sure that the client is number one for us at PlaceOS, and that we're working with them to understand what they think of our product, our service, our engagement around account management, whatever that may be, and also doing the same. So just using those action points and touch surveys with our clients to understand how we improve to make our service, our product, whatever it may be, better for them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are using it at the end of the day and paying our bills. So that's the way I looked at that.
And perhaps even understanding some weaknesses we can't solve internally, so maybe we need to change our strategy. And that helped drive our move away from projects.
Yeah.
We weren't set up to manage lots of projects all at the same time. It just wasn't the nature of our business.
Yeah.
So as we shift to partnership model, channel model, and focus on tools for the partners rather than just doing it ourselves, that's really improved our service delivery. And we knew that was a weak point, and we had some feedback from early adopters that they were happy with the product, maybe not so much some of the services, particularly in that teething stage of a project. So that's something we know. Well, I guess we always need to improve that. I mean, there's no goalpost finish line for that one. I think if we aim to constantly improve our delivery quality of service, that's all we can do.
It's the main thing, and I think that comes back to one of the strategic pieces around being continuous development. So not just within what we're doing with our product or what we're doing with our clients, but just our own team to say, hey, well, at work every day, what are the things that I can continually improve to make whatever we do better? And that's just an ethos that I think is a great one to have in business in general. What can we do to continually to evolve and to make things better with what we do? So a couple of those things were put in place around the engagement. The team was really, Jeremy's really taken a lead role. I can't really take that one off him for working with the product team on working into agile teams and working in that manner, which creates a really happy team working close to the code, working on a product roadmap that's helping them, working on supporting partners with their capabilities. So that's great for our clients and for them. They can do more solutions with PlaceOS. Our clients have more choice in which partner they want to deal with and which products they want to use based on our platform, which is awesome. And the rest of it's really, I suppose, around a lot of what I do is around process and policy and that sort of governance sort of piece. So making sure that we're doing what we're doing it the right way, thinking about things long term, but then being able to operationalize it within our team to make it actually happen.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of short overview of what I'm interested in and what I like doing. People and culture is something that I've been educated in sort of HR management, and when I was doing that, the piece that stood out to me was mostly around change management in business. So I'm really keen on anything strategic around business and how you can continually adapt it and change it to be what you'd like it to be in the future. And the piece that I like is around how to actually make that happen.
I think it's also like just in time, which in my mind is always the best measure of when to introduce process.
That's
like,
right.
Do it just in time, and then then it's a good fit. And there's high adoption of that process if it's needed, somewhat, and then you don't want to be too late because then you have legacy to deal with. In
Yeah,
terms of culture, I think that's one that you sort of hit a certain size in a business and
that's right.
it means something.
Yeah,
When you're a small team, you sort of have this arbitrary sort of thought of what workplace culture is, and you don't really quite understand it until you realize it guides everything. It guides
yeah,
who works well in your organization, so you know who to hire.
yeah,
It keeps people retained. It keeps people happy, and it keeps them productive. It's
yeah,
the core element of making things work. I think I put in a slide deck recently that scale equals people and people equals culture.
yeah,
So managing that has been one of your recent achievements.
yeah,
And Culture Amp is just a tool for that, but it's one of those tools where at first I was worried maybe platform overload internally,
yeah.
particularly all the things I've got to log into, from financial to everything else. But this one is easy to use and set some framework, even for doing feedback
That's right. Yeah,
getting and receiving feedback, which is great.
yeah. Which is the main point is to provide one platform that does multiple pieces of our people work for us internally, from sitting down with your direct report and having a one-on-one and recording that information so you make some good actionable insights off the back of that to go away and work on, to building performance plans and development plans with the team to help with their progression over their career. That's what we're here to do. Is we're here to grow people in their career and personally as well. So that's something that I enjoy doing. I think it's great for any firm to have that in place, but it's got to be at the right time. It's got to be something that's not too process driven, or it's just full of red tape, or people won't be interested in doing it.
Yeah,
And it's got to give back to them at the end of the day, and also be used for the managers of that department or company to grow as managers and be able to manage
yeah,
people better. So it's all around people. Yeah.
yeah. Not being scared of what's it called, 360 or 180 feedback. Not being scared of
Yeah,
feedback
that's right.
from employees. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
that's correct.
your direct reports.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so look, that's been a lightning fast conversation. Is there anything else you want to cover?
Not really, John. I think that's been great, and thanks for having me on.